Okay, give me just a second because I'm trying to get my PowerPoint up on the screen. I practiced this before we started and now I can't get it to cooperate. So give me just a moment and see if I can't.
Every day Saturday when we're retired, Butch, so take
That's
your
the
time.
truth.
So
There-
I'll tell you more about him. During this time of COVID, he's down here in Florida, and we are actually in a homeowners association, a condo association. And I spoke up during a meeting, and then one of the board members decided that I should apply for the 3 vacant seats. And while this board member was telling me about it, Butch also was interested. And when we both got our resumes together and decided we're going to apply together, my mother decided that Butch would be better on the screen, on the board. So Butch is now on the board, very busy with board meetings and committee meetings. And I'm enjoying my new virtual law practice. So that's also what Butch is doing in his spare time. Take it away, honey.
Okay, you now have the hopefully the PowerPoint on the screen. And so you will see the title slide. My good friend, Judge Steve Hornsby, who's also a retired judge, and I have been presenting this 3-part series, webinar series on achieving mindfulness in our current times. We just finished up the 3rd in the series for the law students at Memphis Law, the law school. The Student Bar Association wanted us to do a 3-part webinar series, the same series that we did for the University of Memphis Alumni Association, and that's where President Charlotte attended and has been one of our star pupils. And I'll let Charlotte tell you about how it is mindfulness and meditation has helped her. And so I'm using the same slides that I used for the first session for the law students, which was the same session for the Alumni Association. So let me warn you, I told Will before we started, this normally takes me and us, Steve and I, normally 45 minutes to present. I'm going to do my best to do it shorter tonight because I know our speakers are supposed to go 20 to 30 minutes, 30 at the most. As a part of this presentation, we always try to do at least a short 3-minute meditation to show you, for those of you who haven't meditated before, to show you how it's actually done. You know, I will try to do that, but I may have to cut that short. Anyway, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. So if you have to leave early, I understand, but I want you to get enough of this information that encourages you. If you don't know about and practice mindfulness and the meditation piece, I really, really strongly encourage you to do so. So, you know, we are, even before this terrible pandemic started, we all have stressors in our lives every day. You know, we've all got these days too many things to do and too little time in which to do them. We've got all of the responsibilities of our work, of our home life, family, and other responsibilities. You know, family responsibilities these days for us, most of us baby boomers, includes caring for our aging parents. And of course, we have maybe smaller children for some of us, or certainly adult children for some of us. And we've got all of those pressures of responsibilities of worrying about children and grandchildren and that sort of thing. Constant multitasking. And multitasking is really sort of a myth. The problem with multitasking these days, and I'm one of those who tries to multitask. The problem with that is we end up not doing any of those tasks we're trying to do at the same time very well. It's a real problem. We've got the problem of what some people call a carousel of thoughts. I call it head noise. It's that constant swirl of thoughts in our minds every day that are competing with what's right in front of us at the moment. with competing and distracting our attention from what's right in front of us at the moment. So now you add the other stressors that we're dealing with in the midst of this pandemic for the last 7 or 8 months, which is likely to go on. The medical experts tell us well into 2021, they're predicting that life is not going to get back anywhere close to normal until 2022 for us. And so now we deal with all of these stressors that add to the uncertainty. And that's the big stressor to me. It's the uncertainty of the length of this awful pandemic, whether or not we'll or our family members will or loved ones will get infected with the virus, the financial issues that it's caused with some people not being able to work, being out of work, that sort of thing, working from home, the stressors of working from home, and those of us who have smaller children teaching children at home now. And of course, lots of other stressors that I can't even name, and you all know what those stressors are. So self-care has become even more important during this stressful time than normal times. It's certainly more important during crisis times, and we're in the midst of a 100-year pandemic crisis. So the reason I like talking about mindfulness and meditation is it is a way to build our resiliency. Resiliency, of course, the noun is the ability to persist in the face of challenges and to bounce back from adversity. Or I saw a recent definition in an article from the American Bar Association Journal. It's the ability to recover from any challenge in our life, any stressful situation, any challenge that creates stress, additional stress on us. It's the ability to recover. I call it being flexible. When you're resilient, you're able to be flexible, sort of like a boxer or a ballet dancer or a great quarterback, being able to be flexible enough on your feet to move around and not be thrown off balance with whatever life throws at you during this pandemic. So resiliency and building resiliency requires intentionality. And intentionality is a noun, and it's the act of being deliberate or purposeful. And what mindfulness teaches us is to be intentional and deliberate about ourselves as much as we can every minute of every day. That's what mindfulness is all about. So a definition of mindfulness is present moment awareness. It's being, as I call it, being fully aware of what you're doing while you're doing it with a non-judgmental attitude. And we'll talk a little bit more about the non-judgmental attitude part of it. So mindfulness, of course, my guess is that all of you have heard the term mindfulness by now. Mindfulness has only come to the mainstream attention within the last maybe 2 years, maybe 3. Mindfulness has been around for 15 or more years. It's been in the business community. A lot of the insurance companies have now adopted and encouraged mindfulness and meditation techniques for all of the benefits that we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes. A lot of sports teams, a lot of actors and musicians, and you will note the U.S. Armed Services is now teaching mindfulness. There's a really good book that I encourage you to get. It's by Congressman Tim Ryan, a congressman from Youngstown, Ohio, who wrote a book called A Mindful Nation. It's a softbound book. It's a quick read. It's filled with little anecdotes about mindfulness and how people across the country are adopting mindfulness. And he serves on the Armed Services Committee in the House. And so he tells a story in his book about a Gulf War veteran who came back from the Gulf War suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He was taking 13 different medications for PTSD. They taught him mindfulness techniques, which includes meditation as an integral part of learning mindfulness. And after he learned the mindfulness techniques and the meditation techniques, he is now down to taking one medication a day. He went from 13 different medications to one medication a day for his PTSD symptoms. And again, the major insurance companies have now adopted. There was a story by, I believe it was an executive from Aetna Insurance Company, who tells a story about suffering from chronic pain. I don't remember what was causing the pain, but suffering from chronic pain. And he learned mindfulness and the meditation techniques. And the way he described it was, it doesn't reduce the pain necessarily, but it made it easier for him to live with the pain, to sort of acknowledge the pain and sort of work through. And so it made it easier for him to live with the pain. And that's why, again, a lot of the major insurance companies have adopted and are encouraging their insureds to encourage employees to learn these mindfulness and meditation techniques. And so again, mindfulness it's a state of mind. It's a present moment awareness. It's being aware and being in the moment fully, intentionally in the moment, so you can sort of savor every moment of every day. And that ability is cultivated by practicing mindfulness and meditation. So some of the benefits of mindfulness are, and they've done over 4,000 studies. The brain scientist, the neuroscientist is the technical name for those scientists who are studying this. I call them brain scientists because that's what they're doing, is studying the brain. They have found through imaging in the brain that mindfulness lowers stress. It makes us more productive, and it makes us more productive by allowing us to be more focused and attentive with whatever matter is in front of us at the moment each day. And so you're able to more fully focus and pay attention to whatever matter is before you. I practiced it the last, probably 5 years. I was on the bench after I learned about the mindfulness concept, probably in 2006 or 7, somewhere back then. So about 13 years ago, and I practiced it actively on the bench. And I found in practicing mindfulness and the meditation piece, it enabled me to be more attentive to the case in front of me that was being argued, where then I could be more efficient in making the decision on that case. I didn't have all these thoughts swirling around, vying for my attention while I'm sitting listening to the lawyers making the argument, or listening to the case that I'm hearing, if it's a bench trial just before me where I'm making the decision, or even in a jury trial where the jury decides the facts and I'm deciding the law. It again allowed me to be more focused and attentive, and therefore more efficient in my decision making. And the big plus for me is it enables us to be happier people, is the end result in practicing mindfulness. So let's talk a minute about being non-judgmental. Again, hundreds, if not thousands of thoughts are swirling around in our brains every day. Some of us are lucky enough to be able to slow that carousel down and focus more than others, but it's a real problem. So mindfulness involves considering the thoughts that we have as neither good or bad thoughts. They just are. We have a choice about whether we pay attention to all of those hundreds or thousands of thoughts swirling in our brains. We have a choice to say, do we want to believe that thought? And some of those thoughts are that we're not worthy, we're not doing a good enough job, those sorts of negative thoughts that sometimes will creep into our minds. And mindfulness encourages those practitioners to not get involved with whether those thoughts are good or bad. Acknowledge the thoughts and let them go. So let's talk about the neuroscience of mindfulness. Again, the brain studies. Again, there are more than 4,000 studies that have been done on the benefits of mindfulness. They've actually been able to take pictures of the brain and look at the gray matter. And so they have found that mindfulness, those who practice mindfulness, it increases the gray matter and it increases the neural pathways in our brains. They have discovered through all of these research studies that our brains are plastic. Our brains can expand. As I like to say, you can literally, through practicing mindfulness and meditation, change your mind, expand your mind, where you grow new neural pathways to give you a different way to think about things, to sort of create new habits and sort of break old bad habits. It improves our immune system. It increases the lifespan of cancer patients. They have actually shown this through these studies, through people that they teach the mindfulness and the meditation techniques to, and they start practicing that. So again, it makes us better able to focus and manage distractions. And again, as we all know, we are bombarded with distractions daily that scream for our attention. I would commend to you a program on Netflix that I just got through watching. Amy and I watched the other night, called The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I encourage you to go on and look at that. It's really frightening because they have a lot of executives from Google and Twitter, all of these really brainy people who work for these companies to develop Twitter and Google and Snapchat and all these things, and they are designed to vie for our attention, to distract us. All of this social media stuff distracts us from whatever we have to do on a daily basis that requires our attention through work and home and family and those other things that are screaming for our attention during the day. And these former executives for these companies are sounding the alarm bell to say that there are all of these unintended consequences from all of this modern technology, that they design it to distract us, to attract us to the attention of whatever the platform is, whether it's Twitter or Google or Snapchat and I can't think of the names of all the others. That are designed to vie for our attention and distract us away from stuff we need to be working on. So let me ask you to take just a moment. We're just going to take a moment, and we're going to sit up straight, not erect or not stiff spine, but straight, where you're getting air through your windpipe. And let's just take a minute and take a deep inhalation, a deep breath. Hold it for the count of 1, 2, 3, and then exhale. Try to get all of the air out of your lungs. The Navy SEALs teach a technique. It's called a 4x4 technique. They inhale to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They hold it for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You exhale on the count of 4. Now, the experts that I'm reading up on actually encourage you to exhale to the count of 6. You want to exhale a little bit more because that helps to reset your parasympathetic nervous system. It's a good thing for your parasympathetic nervous system to help calm you down is the purpose of that. When you're resetting your parasympathetic nervous system, it helps to calm us down. So breathe in to the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4. Exhale, I like to exhale to the count of 6 to make sure I get all of the breath out of my diaphragm. Hold that to the count of 4, and then again, start the process. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking again for a minute, and let's do an inhale. And exhale. Inhale, deep breath. And exhale. One more inhale. And exhale. Okay, on that little quick exercise, I hope you have the feeling that you're more relaxed. Your blood pressure literally has gone down a little in that little very quick minute or less exercise. So I hope you have been able to feel that. Again, if we have time, we're going to do a little quick 3-minute meditation session at the end, and I'll quickly go on. So the 1-minute deep breathing, literally the brain scientists have shown it decreases the heart rate, it lowers and stabilizes your blood pressure, and it calms your mind. So the other research has shown that it reduces stress. They use mindfulness techniques and meditation to treat heart disease. It lowers the blood pressure. It reduces chronic pain. It improves your sleep, which is so important for all of us to get enough sleep, because a lot of us are sleep deprived. If you're not getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night, trust me, you are sleep deprived. And that's bad for our brains, and therefore it's bad for our bodies. It alleviates gastrointestinal issues. The doctors are now using these techniques to help patients with those issues, with chronic issues. All right, we're going to do a little brain study for just 30 seconds here. This is the slide of the brain. That little orange circular system in the brain is called the limbic system. At the end of the limbic system, that little orange bulbous looking thing at the end, that little dude is called the amygdala. It's about the size and shape of a hazelnut. That's the oldest part of our brain, the earliest part of our brain to develop. And so I'm going to go to the next slide quickly. We're going to be talking very quickly about the ding, 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 ding. Let's get ready to rumble between the amygdala and the frontal lobe, or more accurately, the prefrontal cortex of our brains. And so the amygdala is also known as the reptilian brain. Again, that's the earliest part of our brain to develop. That's the fight, flight, or freeze part of our brain. Now, some people say fight or flight. I added the freeze part because the cave person who came up on the Bengal tiger, that amygdala part of his brain kicked in involuntarily. That's not a voluntary part of our brain. It's involuntary. When we see something that's life-threatening, the amygdala part of our brain kicks in and takes over involuntarily. And so we either stand and fight, or our amygdala tells us to turn around and run. And part of the function of the amygdala is to then squirt a hormone through it alerts the thyroid is what it does. And the thyroid squirts a little hormone called cortisol, cortisol, cortisol. That's a hormone, a stress hormone that constricts the blood vessels, gives us the heart muscle more blood, and our musculature more blood to be able to run away faster. You've heard of people who, in an accident, a traumatic accident, people being able to literally lift up a 2,000 pound or 4,000 pound vehicle off of somebody who's trapped under a vehicle. That's what the stress hormone does for us, is makes us sort of superhuman for a few seconds or a few minutes. That's what happens to soldiers in battle, is that cortisol under the stress, the traumatic fight or flight, life-threatening situations. And so it's why we fear things outside of our control, because a lot of things that happen to us these days aren't truly life-threatening, but our brain, our amygdala part of our brain sometimes thinks that it is life-threatening. You know, let me give you an example. You know, when children are in school, everything is the end of the world. If they have a fight with a classmate, they come home, I'm never going to speak to him again or her again. It's the end of the world. It's a crisis situation for them, right? Same thing for us. You know, if lawyers are in a courtroom in front of a judge and a jury, particularly if they're newer lawyers, they are scared to death of any little thing that happens. The judge asks a question, and even more experienced lawyers, you know, it's like a deer in the headlights. And that causes stress. That is stress inducing. And that amygdala part of our brain, again, tells the thyroid gland to shoot some cortisol into the system to deal with that. The problem when we get into stress, when that amygdala sends that signal and we get under stress, guess what? Same thing happens physiologically. Our blood vessels constrict and it restricts the blood flow to our brains. We don't get as much oxygen to our brains when we're under stress. So mindfulness helps us to remain calm, to be calmer, where we're getting the proper blood flow to our brains, where we can think more clearly and respond to those situations rather than to react to those situations. So again, the amygdala controls reaction to events that we see as potentially threatening. The amygdala thinks life-threatening and dangerous. Again, it deals with basic survival. It's associated with a lot of mental conditions, including depression. And men, it's larger in our brains than it is in female brains. The amygdala contributes to spikes in cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Increased stress, cortisol levels for a short term is okay. But if we're dealing with stress, and some of us deal with stress because of the way we react to situations 24/7, and having cortisol levels increased for an extended period of time is a bad thing for our bodies. It's not good because it spurs the inflammatory response in our body. And the inflammatory response is responsible for a whole lot of bad things that happen to us, like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, clogged arteries, and strokes. The inflammatory response is primarily what creates all of those bad things in our bodies that we suffer from. And the spikes in the cortisol level over a prolonged period of time, if you have that increased level day in and day out, it takes a toll on our bodies, again, in increasing the inflammatory response in our bodies. Again, the experts have found that it increases heart disease mortality by 29%. That's almost a third. It more than doubles the risk of heart-related death. So let's talk quickly about the prefrontal cortex. That's the higher intelligent part of our brain. That's the last to develop in adolescence. That's why our teenagers do sometimes some really stupid things, because literally their prefrontal cortex hasn't fully developed. It's the last part as we're growing up. It's the last part of our brains to develop. And the problem with the battle between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex is, if the amygdala kicks in under stressful situations, it sometimes hijacks and cuts off the prefrontal cortex, the higher intelligent part of our brain. And so the prefrontal cortex is the brain's top executive. It organizes responses to complex problems. It lets us plan steps to an objective. It searches the hippocampus, which is the memory part of our brain in the limbic system. You remember Dr. Christine Blasey Ford talked about the hippocampus area and all of those memories being burned into her hippocampus. Well, that's the memory part, the past experience part that our prefrontal cortex uses when we are confronted with a situation. We call on past experiences from the hippocampus to tell us how to deal with the situation that's in front of us. And that's part of what the prefrontal cortex does. And it allows us to adapt to strategies to accommodate new data that we're being confronted with under that particular situation. So again, you can see that the prefrontal cortex functions to guide us with verbal skills. You know, if we get upset, if our amygdala takes over and we're stressed out and we get upset with what somebody else says to us, we get flustered and we get a loss for words. We don't know what to say. And sometimes it causes us to say things that under normal calmer circumstances we would never have done or said. And after the fact, we wish we had not done or said what we did, because we weren't able to think as clearly because our amygdala had taken over from our prefrontal cortex. So it allows us to manage emotional impulses, again, in socially appropriate ways. And it allows us to use empathy and altruism and interpret facial expressions. That's all a part of what the prefrontal cortex does. And so when we talk about applying mindfulness techniques, normally without mindfulness and without using mindfulness, we have normally a habitual response to a particular stimulus, which causes us to react. What happens with mindfulness, the goal with mindfulness is if we have a stimulus, rather than reacting, and sometimes the reaction is not a good reaction, it's bad. It causes worse consequences for us to have to deal with later. We are able to mindfully deal with that stimulus in the moment, and we are able to choose a proper response to the situation rather than a bad reaction to the situation. And so that's sort of what mindfulness helps us to do. So mindfulness improves well-being. It supports a positive attitude that contributes to a satisfied life. It makes it easier for us to savor pleasures in life. Again, this is the key, as they occur. Folks, I spent so much of my life before I learned about mindfulness and meditation worried about how I screwed up yesterday that I was going to have to fix today, or something I was going to have to deal with tomorrow that took up all of my time, where I couldn't enjoy being right here, right now. And so mindfulness and meditation has helped me personally to learn to savor as much as I can. And I don't do it perfectly. Nobody does it perfectly, but I strive through practicing mindfulness and meditation, the meditation piece, to do it as much as I can every day, where I'm more in the moment than not, where I'm not worried about, because practicing mindfulness, I'm able to be focused and attentive, and more likely than not, make the right decision and make it quicker than if I don't practice mindfulness, where I'm not worried about what I did yesterday, and I'm not focused or worried about what I'm going to have to deal with tomorrow. I'm enjoying and dealing with right here, right now. And that's, folks, what mindfulness has done for me, and most all of the practitioners that I know of will tell you the same thing. So again, it helps us to be fully engaged in our daily activities, and it gives us a greater capacity to deal with adverse events than if you don't practice mindfulness. And so let's talk about the basic technique. And Amy, somebody tell me where we are with the time here. I've got
It is 6:10.
I've got 6:10, and we started about what, 20 minutes till. So I'm right at 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to speedily finish up here. So here's the basic technique of meditation. And again, meditation is key if you're going to try to practice mindfulness. Pick an object of concentration. Now I have learned to focus on my breath, and that's what a lot of people do. I actually started out because somebody suggested me using the 24-second clock in the basketball games and the pro basketball games, the NBA. I would visualize the 24-second clock in my mind with my eyes closed. I would start counting down from 24, 23, 22, and I would continue until I had a random thought that would come into my mind. So as number 3 says, notice when your mind wanders, and I guarantee you, your mind will wander in meditation. It does for everybody. So you're not doing it wrong if during your meditation you have a thought pop into your mind. The key is acknowledge the thought, okay, let it go. And again, focus on your breathing or your 24-second clock or whatever you choose to focus on. Focusing on the breath, to me, if I'm focusing and I count to myself, breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out. I go to 6 and hold that for 4. I'm focusing on the counting, and I'm focusing on the breathing, and it sort of distracts you from those random thoughts that pop into your head. So I'm going to tell you about the FOR, the 4 technique, in just a minute, about how to help you do that. So observe the thought with curious awareness, not judging whether it's a good or bad thought, and let it go. Your mind's going to wander. That's fine. let go of whatever distracted you and bring your attention back to your object of concentration. And again, my suggestion for you is if you use the breath, it's a great focus. So let's talk about the 4 technique: focus, observe, and return. So the key is focus on your object of concentration with curious non-judgment. Again, that's the breath. Focus on the breath. The O in 4 is observe. Observe when your mind wanders. Acknowledge the thought when that random thought pops into your mind, and it will, and probably more than one during your meditation session. And then the R is return. Bring your attention back to your object of concentration. So, and when I learned this technique from my good friend, Judge Steve Hornsby, who's been practicing meditation since he was a teenager, a long time. He's a little younger than I am, but not much. So focus, observe, return, FOR. So focus on your object of concentration. I focus on my breathing. If I have a random thought that pops into my head, I observe it. Okay, that's fine. Let it go and return back to your focus of observation. All right, we're going to very quickly. We may not do 3 minutes, but I really do want to, for those of you who haven't done meditation, and some of you might have, put your feet on the floor. It's always good to get grounded. Ground yourself, put your feet on the floor, be comfortable, but stay erect enough. You don't have to have a rigid spine, but stay erect enough where your head and neck are straight, and you're getting more air into your windpipe and into your lungs. And so close your eyes. I always like to. You don't have to, but it's a good thing to close your eyes. So breathe in deeply. Take a big, healthy inhalation. I usually count to 4 and then hold it for 4. And then exhale. You can exhale to the count of 4 or 6. And then continue to breathe and focus on your breathing. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get all your breath out. Hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Okay, in the sake of time, I'm going to call time. I've done lots of these presentations, particularly for legal groups. And again, for the University of Memphis Alumni Association and for the law students. It never fails when I call time. It's the feeling with all of the people in live, particularly in the rooms when I've done it live, and even in the virtual rooms. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want this feeling to end. I'm not through yet. I hope you felt like that. So think about how you felt. Anybody sleepy? If you're sleepy, when I first started learning to meditate, I would fall asleep half the time. That's okay. What that tells you is you're not getting enough sleep. It tells you that your body literally is sleep deprived. So pay attention to that. In a later session, if Charlotte, you want to do more sessions, I've got 2 more in the can if we want to do that later. But part of what the brain does during sleep, it's like we sort of go into a coma. It's like our brain is in a coma, and the body uses the cerebrospinal fluid to sort of wash our brain. It's sort of like putting the brain in the dishwasher, and it cleans out all of that stuff in our brain. And it then the next day, with a good night's sleep, at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep, makes our brains more efficient with dealing with matters the next day. And if you don't get enough sleep, our brain has less ability to do that, and it's less efficient in its operation. That's what the brain scientists tell us in all of these studies. So did you feel rested? Did you feel calm? More energized, more focused, or some other feeling? And in the sake of time, normally I ask people to respond and give feedback, but I won't tonight. So this process is simple, but it's not easy. Learning to meditate was not easy for me, and it's still not easy. I have to make it a point to set aside, and I try to do it 3 times a day. Once in the morning, certainly once in the morning, as soon as I wake up, once in midday, and once in the late afternoon. I like to say the old Dr. Pepper. You guys are all old enough to remember the Dr. Pepper slogan, 10, 2, and 4. Use that for your 3 breaks a day to, again, make you more efficient in your day. Now, I don't always get 3 sessions in. I try to always get 1 in the morning. And I'm a late night person. If I stay up late, I normally fall asleep in front of the TV. Amy can tell you. And then for some reason, I have trouble going to sleep because I've been exposed to that blue light from either the TV or the computer. And blue light is bad because blue light or white light makes our brain think it's daytime and it's time to wake up. And the experts recommend that we shut off the blue light or the white light at least 2 hours before bedtime. Now, I know that's not practical for most of us, but if you can shut it off at least an hour before, well, I don't practice what I preach there. I'm in front of the TV screen and fall asleep, and then I have trouble going to sleep. So I use my meditation techniques and deep breathing to relax myself and fall right asleep. And so again, practice, practice, practice. Charlotte, I want you to unmute as my star pupil and tell them what the meditation that you have learned to practice through these sessions, what it's done for your blood pressure.
It has helped me tremendously, because every time I went to a doctor, they would say, okay, breathe, breathe. I would say, well, I'm breathing. And anytime that I was on medication, I just couldn't take it. It was too much. And so I got a blood pressure cup. And after I listened to Mr. Butch, during the University of Memphis session, so I just started taking my blood pressure every day, and I used the insight timer for my 3 minutes. At first, my mind would just wander in 3 minutes, and I just thought, oh, when is 3 minutes going to be over? And then it got to the point that I would say, oh, it's 3 minutes up. And from that, I just started to notice that my blood pressure would be lower in the morning. So I thought, okay, this couldn't be possible. But when I went to the doctor and it was lower from my annual, he said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm listening to Dr. Butch Childers. And he's taught me how to breathe. He said, well, he needs to be in the waiting room. So thank you
Okay.
so much, Britt. Thank you,
Uh,
Butch. Thank
All
you.
right, so
Made a
Charlotte,
big difference.
you led right into my meditation app slide, and I'll be glad, Charlotte or Will Griffin, to get this slide presentation to you for those of you who want to use to get the slide presentation, so you don't have to remember all of this and you can look at the slides. There are a lot of meditation apps. Charlotte mentioned Insight Timer. That's what I started using. It's guided meditation. I needed it to help me learn how to meditate on my own, and I've done that, so I don't use it as much anymore. There are lots of them have free apps, and then they also have the premium version that you can buy for the bells and whistles if you want it. But choose one of those, and again, Insight Timer at the top is a really good one that I highly recommend. And so that's sort of the end of this session, folks. Again, I've got two others. Charlotte and I had talked about at least giving a second one after the first of the year. This is sort of an introduction to mindfulness and meditation. And I hope it helps you. I really encourage you, because of the health benefits to you and the reduction of stress benefits to you, that you will look at meditation and mindfulness. You can Google mindfulness, and you can go on YouTube. There are lots of YouTubes on mindfulness. Dr. Brene Brown is a really good one to listen to. She doesn't necessarily talk about mindfulness, but she talks about the qualities of leadership and that sort of thing. And it sort of incorporates what mindfulness and meditation does for you. And we most all of us who are attracted to Midtown Memphis Rotary Club are leaders. That's what we do in our community, and that's why we're so concerned about service above self and helping others, which is a really important thing to make us feel good inside, to make us feel good about ourselves. So I'm going to stop talking because I know we're way over time, and I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I hope it's been helpful to you.
Thanks, Butch. That was great. I do think we have a little time for question and answers. Anybody wants to pipe up or put it in the chat?
I'm certainly answer any questions that anybody has as much as I can.
Kendale just said he just downloaded the Insight Timer. I think I'm going to follow his example and do the same thing. And I've just added to the chat a link to that movie that Butch recommended, The Social Dilemma, if you're interested in looking into the negative impacts of digital distraction on our lives.
And why we end up so polarized.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
That movie is really excellent for showing why we end up complete different ends of the spectrum.
Well, Pan, since you mentioned that, I think Amy may have told you in the introduction that I'm on the advisory board for the Mindfulness in Law Society. It's a group that was started about 3 or 4 years ago, and they asked me to be a part of the group. And so we planned for this past June a national conference to be held in Memphis, and part of the events to be held at the National Civil Rights Museum. And the theme of it is increasing civility in our totally polarized society.
Wonderful.
In our totally polarized country. And we're still planning it. In fact, I'm on the planning committee, and we had a meeting of the executive committee for the Mills board, the Mindfulness Law Society board. We pushed it back. We were going to do it the next June in 2021, but we pushed it back again because of what they're talking. The medical experts are talking about the length of the pandemic. We're tentatively going to try to do it in October. If any of you are interested, I will keep you in the loop of the plans for this. We're going to have national speakers coming in. It's incorporating mindfulness into trying to increase our civility in the country, and using mindfulness and awareness to do that. So if you're interested, I'll get the information to Charlotte or Will or McGriff or Denise or whoever I need to get it to circulate it to our club. So we're excited about doing that, and hope and we talked about the importance of having it in person, and that's the reason we're putting it off. We talked about trying to do it virtually, but we really want to have the atmosphere and the history and the background of the Civil Rights Museum. One of the things that we're planning to do on Sunday morning, it's going to be a weekend conference. On Sunday morning, we're tentatively planning to go down to a monastery in Batesville, Mississippi. I didn't know it was down there until I learned from my good friend Steve Hornsby that it was a monastery began by a monk whose name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He was Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And we're going to plan a bus trip down to Batesville, an hour drive down to Batesville early Sunday morning on the last day of this conference. Again, to do the mindfulness and the meditation piece of mindfulness here. And so again, I really encourage you. Anybody else have any questions? I'm talking way too much.
I'd like to give an example of what mindfulness did to a group of leaders. When I was director of Leadership Memphis, and we would have a class day and 55 people come together, and they have to be there at 8 o'clock on the dot, and we have to get going, and all these type A's are racing in from everywhere, and their kids and their lives and their whatever going on and whatever. Well, on the third class day, Jan Young of the Assisi Foundation was in the class. And she came up to me and she said, "Do you mind if I just do an exercise with the class?" And I thought, sure, why not? And Jan got up and did exercises in mindfulness and awareness with the class. And you could just, it was palpable. You could just feel everybody's concentration come in, and the tenor, everybody was calmer, and the days went, and she did it every day thereafter for the rest of the year. It
Got a
works.
question. Thank you. I've got actually a question for a couple of the educators that are on with us. Kendall and Archie, or Principal Moss, I think, is online as well. I know I've heard some about the use of mindfulness in schools, and I know that there's some models where they've used mindfulness in exchange or in lieu of some of the more traditional, more punitive disciplinary programs. I'm curious if y'all have seen any moves in the Memphis area to incorporate mindfulness for children in the educational arena.
I will say at the elementary level, we have a turnaround room, which is designed to like turn around behaviors of students that might need a little reset. And so it is where we do a lot of the mindfulness and the meditation. So we have the lights off, we have like our diffusers that are in there, and it's an opportunity for the students just to decompress, get out those emotions. And what we've noticed is that when we've done that, they've had the time to just process, calm their breathing, that when we send them back to class, whatever they were frustrated with, upset about, has quickly faded away, and they're back in classroom learning like normal. And so we found this year more than ever, because we're virtual, that with our morning advisory time, we have a segment that every teacher does every day that is about meditation. It's called, we do breathing every day. And so we spend about 3 minutes. It's like he was mentioning, like it might be 3 minutes small, it might seem small, but like we just take those 3 minutes just to regulate the students' breathing so that they can show up better for the school day. And so I have seen that it does definitely work with kids. And I do it with my staff because they need it more than the kids most days.
Dr. Moss, thank you for that. Let me follow up with that and suggest to you 2 quick stories from the Representative Congressman Tim Ryan's book, A Mindful Nation. One of the stories, he talks about the Hawn Foundation. That's Goldie Hawn, Hawn. Google the Hawn Foundation. And the Hahn Foundation now is spending money to teach meditation techniques to elementary school students. So Google that, number one. That's the first story he tells about, the little anecdotes that he tells in this very quick softbound read that he wrote. The second story is this. He tells a story about a friend of his who had a 5-year-old son who just could not sit still to learn to read. It was like, ADD or ADHD when it came to reading. And so Congressman Ryan taught the friend's son mindfulness techniques. He's a really big believer. In fact, I was in Boca Raton, Florida 4 years ago when the American Association of Law Schools, which is where the Mills conference society started, the Mindfulness and Law Society started. I went to that all-day conference on mindfulness. And Congressman Ryan was the keynote speaker at lunch. He is a really big believer in mindfulness. So the other story he tells is about this 5-year-old that he taught meditation techniques to and mindfulness techniques, and meditation being a part of it. After that, this kid would go to his mother and say, "Mom, can I have my pillow so I can sit down and read?" And would sit down and start reading. So that's the kind of things that to me are nothing short of miraculous in the use of mindfulness techniques and the meditation part of it to help all of us, including small children, to be calmer and more mindful and more attentive. That's what it did for this 5-year-old kid. It made him be able to be focused and attentive, where before he learned these techniques, it was impossible. He just couldn't do it. So that's sort of what mindfulness does. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories just like that of people who are using the mindfulness techniques to improve us. Anybody else? Dr. Moss, thank you so much for your comments. I'm glad to know that you're using those techniques for the kids.
I would like to interject something real quickly. I'm currently teaching middle school. I'm a teacher of gifted and talented students, but with all of these students being in front of these computers for numerous hours per day, I always try to institute a brain break. Typically we do some type of logic puzzle, but now I'm going to think about incorporating some mindful meditation as a brain break. We've been studying claims and arguments. We were talking about claims and arguments today, and one of my students said that I said, select a controversial issue. So he said that teachers are holding him in class and make him late for his other class. I said, well, that's not really controversial. But he did say the amount of time that we sit in front of these computers is a controversy. And I said, I agree. So I had him research pieces on virtual education and hybrid learning. But I'm definitely going to do some research around incorporating brain breaks that involve some type of meditation into my classes.
That's great.
I want to tell you another quick story about a cousin of mine who lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She's a retired social worker from one of the grade schools, elementary schools in Grand Rapids. She told me this story recently about teaching a class of, I think it was 6 and 7-year-olds maybe, and she did a little meditation. And at the end of the meditation, one of the students, I don't remember whether it was a girl or boy, it makes no difference, raised his hand or her hand and said, "Mrs. Jansma, this is the quietest my brain has ever been." And again, it just illustrated for me the head noise in all of us, including small children these days, with all of the attention, with all of the technology and the soundbite world we're living in, the Nintendo world we're living in that distracts us and keeps our head filled with a lot of junk, with a lot of head noise, with that carousel. And that meditation piece slows that carousel down where we can, again, be calmer and be more thoughtful and more focused and attentive to what's in front of us at the moment.
Wonderful.
So thank you guys for your attention and focus. I really enjoyed it. I love doing this stuff because it really is so helpful to our lives and makes us, again, hopefully you guys are a thoughtful group to begin with. You know, you wouldn't be in Midtown Rotary if you weren't thoughtful and wanting to do good and help people. So it just makes us, again, more efficient with the time that we have. I like to call it, we're able to do more with less time.
But I
It's
just like
because
to
of people like you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to do it.
It was a great session. Thank you.
And Butch, I'd like to thank you again for adding to my life in a way that even physicians had not been able to do. And just the idea of mindfulness, which there's no telling how far your reach is now. Because you told us, and now we can tell others, and we can do the same thing. And then in February, we have another session coming. But I know you're glad you retired, but we are especially glad that you retired. So now you can help us more.
Well, for those of you who've read The Tipping Point, the book, The Tipping Point,
Yes.
that's sort
yes.
of what this is all about.
Yeah.
Is, you know, I teach you, you teach others, and we hopefully at some point reach the tipping point where it's a calmer, better, more civil world, Pam.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry to be late, but I was on another Zoom call and Will just barreled in here and he said, "You've got to jump in there because we're just talking about the cool stuff and you've got to talk to him after this." And I think you and I were talking about the same thing on different platforms. So
Good, good.
yeah, very good. I understand it was a really good talk. So glad you recorded it.
It'll be on YouTube soon. For your view, and along with Butch's permission. I didn't actually warn you ahead of time, Butch. I recorded this session and we typically been posting it to YouTube, but I don't want to spread it too far if you're not ready for that.
No, that's fine. Whatever, you know, I'm fine with any of that. As I say, you know, spread the word is all I can say.
Sure. I wish I could say we have millions of viewers, but we do not.
That's okay. That's all
But you
right.
can all watch. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, do you want me to send the PowerPoint slides since you
Yeah.
are?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'll send those to Charlotte, you or Will. I don't
Denise
remember who.
probably. Well, send it to me. I'm saying Denise. You can send it to me or Denise.
Okay. All right. I'll send it to you. Again, I'm sorry to take up so much time, guys, but I really appreciate your hanging in.
How do you find the YouTube things?
Oh, hold on. Give me 2 minutes and I'll get you the link and I'll put it in the chat.
We have it posted on our website as well as Facebook. There's a link of all of our various things on. So if they actually are at that one site, they should be showing up on our website as well. So you have to like log down on the home screen, and then also on Facebook, one of the first postings says, here's our meetings or whatever, and just click and it should take you to the site that Will has them all. It's sort of like a directory, is that right, Will? Where
Right.
there's a directory of all the various meetings we've had, and there's
Right.
films of each of our meetings.
Dustin,
Films of them.
just put the link in the chat. If you want to click on the link, that'll take you there. I got to be honest, sometimes I'm better than others about starting the meeting recording at the very beginning, and but I try to make sure we get as much as we can.
You can set it to record automatically.
It does, but then we pick up 15 minutes of what is lovely chatter at the front end, but sometimes not very relevant. So.
Oh, and another thing, stay tuned again for part 2, February 9th, and we'll hear again from Dr. Judge Butch.
That's great.
I'm about to reply to Denise's email, and it looks like it may have everybody on it. So I'm just going to send it that way, and you may all get it anyway, whether you want it or not.
I don't know if it'll get there because I blind copied, so you get it, but is it showing all the names, Butch? I may have screwed
Yes,
up.
well, it's for sure to you and Charlotte, and then it's copied to, well, it looks like Judge Elvis and Carmen Oguz and North Sunflower and
Oh, well, there's a list of about 50 people that is blind copied. So
Okay.
We can send it out to everybody
Well, it's for sure
otherwise.
going to go to you and Charlotte.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
So I feel like I don't know some of you all.
Oh,
Do we have new people?
Yes.
Dr. White, you want to introduce yourself? I think Nancy's been on projects. So she's
have
missed
one
some of
coming
our
up.
new members. And Dr. Moss, want to introduce yourself to Nancy?
Oh, hello, Nancy. I'm
Hi.
Kendall White. I'm a educator in Shelby County Schools. I've been in education probably over 25 years, and I currently teach gifted and talented students.
Cool.
And I am Archie Moss Jr. I am the proud principal at Bruce Elementary School.
That's right. Okay, you came and talked to us, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was a good talk. I remember that talk.
And since that talk, Dr. Moss has been a proud recipient on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
What?
For his great works, yeah. And the other part is he has decided that he would like to be a member of this fine, mindful group.
On Rotary.
All right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna drop this here because I'm just shameless right now. I'm working the podcast, the Friends on Hand podcast. I have a podcast that talks just about friendship, ins and outs. I'm hoping to get Miss Barry Simpson on there soon with her best friend. But I'm doing a challenge, a Facebook challenge next week starting on Monday, and it is the Holiday Social Survival Challenge. And it is really about making sure you have the ability and the wherewithal to communicate well and de-escalate any kind of disagreement you might encounter. So for anybody who is maybe a little stressed out about the holidays and what it might bring up, this would be a really good thing. So if you know anybody who is, this stuff can happen over a Zoom, a phone call, or a text too. So just as easily as the dinner table. So I will put that out on Facebook and that kind of thing. So you guys, if you're interested, send somebody out there. We need peacemakers right now more than ever. And I'm pretty sure that's what y'all were just talking about.
Okay.
Just put a link to the podcast in the chat, so you can follow that to Nancy's podcast website.
Can I ask
Charlotte,
one
Denise.
Pan, go ahead.
Okay, it is about YouTube links or anything that we put in the chat actually that has various links or information. When the talk ends, the chat ends. Is there a way to keep that link? Because I mean, sitting here and copying down HTTP, it just doesn't work for me. So
Sure, I've got a copy of them all.
3 dots.
And I can pull them out from the chat, and we can include that. I can try to do that. I'm getting fancier every time now. That's a great question. I'll add that in the information for the YouTube videos, but I'll also see if we can send it back out to the group. It's kind of a
If you
follow-up.
go in the chat to the 3 little dots there and click on that, you can save the chat.
Right.
The other thing that you can do is just print screen. If the chat is up and they're all listed there, if you do a print screen command on your computer, you can just paste it into a text or a Word document or whatever and print it out, and you've got it right in front of you.
Nice.
So multiple ones as opposed to one at a time.
that's good. I just saved it too. Great, thanks.
Nice. I look forward to watching this on YouTube.
I think it looks like we're coming to a close here. Charlotte, is there anything
Yeah,
else?
our next meeting will be another fantastic meeting with Jim Drummond. And it's a follow-up actually from the meeting with Clemens Wilson Jr. And he'll be presenting to us one of the projects that Clemens Wilson is involved in. I think it's called Tennessee Achieve. And so we'll have Tyler Ford. Is that his name, Denise? Tyler
Yes, I
Ford.
believe.
Tyler Ford will be with us then. And so think about I think it's 11 minutes, or is it? There's a short amount of time involved in this volunteer effort. So think about helping some students just to get through the registration process as far as going to college. So think about volunteering. Jim's not here tonight, so just consider me Jim.
Right, it was at the bottom of your notice about Butch's speech, so there's a little bit there already, but then it's on the 24th that this gentleman will be speaking with us, as well as I hope Jim Drummond. So we'll send out more information in your next notice.
Right. And the other thing is get your fingers ready, because Mike has a project for us to make cards for the seniors at St. Peter's. He needs 250, so we'll have to figure out how to get those to us. And Nancy has agreed to help.
That was my question.
Okay.
Hey, when?
Your cookies?
When? Yeah.
When will, which when?
When would you need them? Because I am
Your cookies?
until December 7th. And then
Your
I
cookies is left up to you, because
Okay.
they'll go to a hospital, so workers will always be there. It's
We'll
part of
pick
our
up.
COVID response. So let us know when you're available and we'll work it out.
Okay, cool.
Just
cool.
thankful for the cookies.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, we're just doing so great. You know, we're in the middle
I
of
don't need to have those in my house. They need to be baked and out, gone. I'll eat them all. That man right there will eat them all. He will eat them all. He really
And
will.
remember, everyone, Nancy has, will you bake bread again this year, Nancy?
I bake bread every weekend. I bake bread.
Okay, and we'll
Part of
also
life
have
for me.
that.
It's one of my meditations. It is and I do a little Facebook Live when I laminate my dough on Saturday mornings. If anybody wants to come watch me stretch dough over an island.
I would love to see that. Can we Zoom that meeting?
Well, sure. Yeah,
That'll be great.
Well, I can run it through Zoom. I will.
Or Facebook, or I mean FaceTime or WhatsApp. Is it? But I would love to see that.
I tell you what, I'll let Denise know what time I'll be laminating, and then I'll stick to a schedule, and Saturday you guys can watch this.
That's funny.
It is interesting, and it's fun. It's very like there's something because it takes a while to like stretch it out. My island is 48 inches by 24 inches, and on a good day, I can get it all. I can cover the whole thing without a break. That's like
Wow.
when I do the happy dance. Usually there's a tear here or there, but whatever.
Quick
Yeah.
question to Charg. Is it
Yes.
possible to set this Zoom up using our Rotary Zoom connection?
Right.
Can any of us use that to set it up, or does somebody else have to be able to do it?
Will,
have to give
can
somebody,
anyone-
I just have to give somebody the login and password. It's not like open, and it's only set to have one host. So we get into the weeds just a bit. Coble, did you have a question? You were waving. I don't know if that was at me.
He's muted.
It may. No, I didn't have a question.
Okay. So, yeah, if somebody wants to set up another meeting, just let me know and I can provide you with the login information. I guess. I don't know that we're overly secure, or don't know that we need to be. But right now it's just set up for one host, but we can certainly set up more meetings as necessary.
And I'd just like to thank everyone once again. This was a party meeting. So remember, when you come to Midtown Rotary, want you to know, Dr. Moss, we are the Partay Rotary Group. So if you're not ready to partay, then you probably don't want to be part of this group. That's why we meet in the evenings at the cocktail hour.
This
Thank
is
you
a
for
fun
joining
group.
us tonight.
All right, well, I'm going to sign off for the
Yes,
evening.
can you
Bye, guys.
do-
Bye-bye.
Everybody,
Thanks,
thanks again.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. Thanks, Butch. Have a good night.
Thank you, Will.